Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Media Boat Podcast. This is your number one source, I guess now by default, for news and thoughts about video games, television, music, and movies, not necessarily in that order. Today is May 1st. Happy May Day, everybody. Workers unite. And it is episode 485 of the Media Boat Podcast today. As you can tell, I don't need to tell you this if you have eyes or if you can listen. It's just me again, just Matt today. Mike is on assignment again. This time he didn't tell me what he was doing, but he is busy tonight. I don't know doing what. He'll be back by himself next week, as I will be in the fine state of Florida. Well, maybe fine is being generous. I will be in Florida. And so, yeah, he'll be doing a solo show next week. But this week, you're just going to have to deal with me again. So there. Yeah, let's get into it. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. Like I said, news, thoughts about all those subjects in some kind of order. Today, we're actually going to go to talk about some video games first. The reason being is that there was a lot of news, especially today, that broke all over video games that I really want to talk about with you guys. So let's jump right into the video game section, and we always start that section with the new releases. First up, we've got Despelote, available on PC, PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X, and Nintendo Switch. That's actually a really cool looking game. It kind of uses a blend of hand-drawn animation and photorealistic background. It seems like it's a story from a very specific culture that doesn't get a lot of stories told. I'm reading very positive reviews of it. And yeah, that happened this morning, and then all the bad news happened at the same time. So yeah, I hope it's not getting overshadowed in coverage right now. But yeah, check out Despelote. Also out this week is Age of Empires 2 DE. I'm guessing that's Definitive Edition. The Three Kingdoms, and that's for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. By the name, I'm guessing that is an expansion for the recently released Definitive Edition reboot or remake of Age of Empires 2. So enjoy that if you're an Age of Empires head. I do want to say that that's probably a Microsoft product, so, do what you can there to avoid that if you're supporting the boycott. All right, now let's get into the video game news. And like I said, it was a doozy of a week and a day, especially today. So I'm going to rewind the clock a little bit and first talk about some stories that happened earlier in the week. First up, I'll start with the positive story. It's also a story that's kind of a capper on something we've been following for quite a long time at this point. Epic versus Apple. As you may well know, there was a court case involving Epic suing Apple over treatment on the iOS App Store. Epic was basically pointing out that Apple had essentially a monopoly on app stores, on the App Store on iOS, basically on apps and how they're downloaded and used on the platform. Epic especially had a bone to pick about its payment process. So what Apple did, and still up until this ruling, for most apps on the App Store is if you bought the App Store and then did a transaction through the app that you got on the App Store, a portion of that transaction would go to Apple. So some companies were trying to protect against that. And so what they would do is make the price of the subscription or the purchase more expensive on iOS than other platforms. I saw this personally with YouTube Premium. If you buy YouTube Premium through the YouTube app on an iOS device, it will cost more money than it does to buy YouTube Premium on a desktop computer, for example, or an Android phone. This is because of that extra fee. So naturally, Epic, who runs Fortnite, didn't really want Fortnite Cruise subscriptions and every other V-Bucks purchase having that extra Apple tax attached to it. So they took him to court on kind of behalf of them and also the rest. This did have, the knock-on effect of removing Fortnite from the iTunes Store, or formerly known as the iTunes Store, the App Store. This court case finally wrapped up this week and ruled in favor of Epic. The judge wrote quite a screed against Apple and their practices, and ultimately ordered that Apple stop doing that revenue grab that they have been doing, and they won't be able to do it from now on. So I do have to say, this isn't a total win. Apple did say that they plan on appealing the case, because of course they do. It's probably a big chunk of their revenue. Not that they need more revenue. They're a $1 trillion company, for crying out loud. On the Epic side of things, Epic said that because of the case wrapping up, they do plan on returning Fortnite to the iOS store after previously taking it off. So yeah, if you want to play Fortnite on an iOS device again, I'm not sure why you would want to, but if you're that kind of person, then yeah, rejoice. You'll be able to do that again soon. Again, depending on how that appeal goes. But otherwise, I think this is a big win for the industry because, you shouldn't have to pay a premium to a store just because they're the only store in town. There needs to be competition, and hopefully this opens the door to that. All right, let's move on to the next story, and here's where the sad stuff starts. I'm sorry, a lot of these stories are going to be bummers this week. But EA had some sweeping layoffs this week, most notably involving Respawn, the developer behind Apex Legends, and before that, the Titanfall series. Apparently, one of Respawn's secret projects that were in development was a Titanfall-based extraction shooter, and that project has been canceled as a result of this of this happening. So yeah, if you were really jonesing for another Titanfall game, bad news again. Those things just get canceled every time they're announced, I swear, or before they're even announced in this case. It's really disappointing to see. And especially over 400 people over the course of the span of the company are going to lose their jobs from this, and that's just disappointing. That's just so sad to see. So another rough week in the video game industry, but it doesn't just stop at video game studios, because today we had a 1-2 punch of news stories about games media websites getting a huge blow. The more prominent and the bigger, the widest scaling one is Polygon. So it came out today that Polygon has been sold by Vox Media to Valnet, which, if you're not familiar, is a venture capital company that already had a few video game related entity websites that ran under its purview, all of which that actually just recently got a bunch of layoffs itself due to a pivot to AI. This is really bad news. Apparently, alongside this sale, most of the staff that are recognizable as Polygon staff got laid off, and the head of the site basically bailed out in solidarity with the people that had been laid off. So yeah, just a brutal desiccation of a storied legacy media website. I didn't spend a whole lot of time with Polygon's website, but I will shout out one of my favorite podcasts that ever existed was one that they called just simply The Polygon Show. It was unique at the time because it was an all-female show. Simone de Rochefort was on there, Allegra Frank, several of my favorites. It was such an amazing show, just such a funny podcast. It only lasted for a couple of years. They pulled the plug on it pretty quickly. But they were doing impeccable work over there. If you want that kind of vibe and you miss that show, like I do, I recommend MinMax just put out a show called Pew Pew Bang, which is also an all-female cast. This has Janet Garcia on it, which you may have heard on Remap's podcast, and also on MinMax content. as well as some of the Min-Max folks, which I'm not familiar with their work, but now I absolutely will check it out because they're really funny. So yeah, that stuff's out there. But yeah, it's a really rough loss for the video game industry to lose Polygon. They had done a lot of great work over the years. Sure, yes, did they do a lot of sponsored content too? But of course they did. You need to in this era. You can't just do this without some sort of support. But yeah, it'll be rough seeing them gone. But the other shoe that finally dropped today, more or less, is can be seen on my hat and on my t-shirt. Yeah, so Giant Bomb looks like it might be over. The website that has existed since 2008, a website about video games, as it was very happy to tell you over the years, looks like it has completely been gutted. So basically, the chronology of events that basically started this was, so last week, they announced that they were going to take a few days off from streaming. This was apparently in response to a directive given from up top by their parent company, Fandom, who, if you recognize that name, you'll know them for the wiki site with a billion ads. That's very, very hard to scroll through. So Fandom's owned Giant Bomb for a couple years now. Ultimately, they told them that streaming maybe wasn't the route that they wanted the website to go down anymore, and pulled the plug on their streaming operation. They had started doing a weekly, almost every day of the week block with the GameSpot folks as well, called the POW block, and that just completely stopped. So no more streaming from those guys, as apparently was the directive. Giant Bomb is a company that has done basically nothing but streaming for the last practically decade. Before that, they were doing just canned video content, but they're mostly known for video content and streaming. And so if you take the streaming out of Giant Bomb, I'm not sure what you have left. They have a wiki, just like Fandom does, but that seems kind of redundant now, considering. There was the Giant Bombcast, the podcast that they've done since the inception of the site. So speaking of which, the next interesting thing that went down was on Tuesday. So Tuesday is the usual day that their podcast goes up. Well, it did, and then it didn't on Tuesday. It was their 888th episode. It was uploaded to YouTube and podcast services, and was mysteriously pulled about an hour or so later. This actually happened to me while I was listening to it. I was watching the YouTube stream of it, and it just bailed out at some point and said it couldn't be found. The video went private. Apparently, someone within the organization took it down. It does not appear that it was taken down by Giant Bomb staff themselves. It looks like it was something that happened higher up. So, it didn't look great from there on. And as the day went on, it pretty much became clear that it wasn't going to return. Jeff Grubb, one of the hosts there, explicitly said that on one of his personal podcasts, that it was their choice it was not their choice to take it down in the first place, but it was their choice not to put it back up. In it, they kind of, messed around a little bit and joked a little bit about the Fandom policies. Apparently, not only did they not want them to stream, but they also wanted to implement kind of a PG-13, content restriction on them, which, if you've ever seen Giant Bomb content, is an insane ask, because these guys really use that explicit tag and always have and always would. It wasn't going to happen. And sure enough, it looks like that's how last night went down. Dan Reichert, the creative director over there and also one of the hosts, decided to go on his own personal stream last night and basically scorched earth, just tell everybody exactly what was happening with Fandom, and essentially quit on air. He he said that he wasn't going to go back to be on the streaming content, content or whatever that content ended up being anytime soon, and that he wasn't going to go to the meetings that were scheduled, etc., etc. Basically, that meant he was out. So that's how it began. And as that story started going around, momentum just built, and everybody was trying to figure out what was going on. Eventually, Jeff Grubb did post on Blue Sky that he was not with the company anymore. Again, implying that either he left or he was let go or something happened. Again, not being explicit. That's the one thing that I want to say here is nothing is official, The official word that later came out of fandom itself is that they are restructuring their company portfolio and that they are thinking, quote, thinking of creative things for uses for the Giant Bomb brand going forward. It just sounded like it was made by, like, written by ChatGPT, and everybody's taking that as, yeah, it's toast. So again, with not knowing what's happening officially and not knowing who exactly is left and who is not there, this is what we know, basically. We can even go through the people and see what the status is, right? Jeff Grubb's out, Dan Reichert's out. That leaves, of the people who are employees of Giant Bomb and not GameSpot, which is, iffy. That leaves Jan, who is a video producer, could be used if GameSpot continues to do video, which I assume that they would. So he would probably remain with GameSpot. And Jeff Bakalar, who was not necessarily on the the Giant Bomb level, he was above Giant Bomb and GameSpot as kind of like as a director role. So he would likely stay on at GameSpot as well. And that's it, because Timur Hussein and Lucy James are GameSpot employees, not Giant Bomb employees. And everybody else who helped was contract. Mike Minotti, Nikki Grayson, and Sean McDowell. So that's it, guys. Like, it looks like it's toast. So yeah, everybody's kind of been treating this as the end, and I don't blame them. It feels like the end to me. And it's a website that's had a lot of ends and new beginnings and has always been interesting to watch in its different permutations and different staff changes. And yeah, it kind of feels like a pour one out right now, because I can't imagine that it is able to or will be allowed to continue to exist as it was ever again. So yeah, it's rough. It's rough. And it really goes to show the state of the current video game journalism, media, scene right now. It's dried up. The only big corporate sites left that are dedicated to video games feel like GameSpot and IGN. And GameSpot's a big question mark right now, so that leaves IGN. And then, of course, in a moment like this, it's important to mention all the independent sites that have started over the course of this mass exodus of this industry. You could name so many of them. There are a ridiculous number of these sites. Aftermath, Remap, Nextlander, Jeff Gerstmann's solo stuff. There's so many. There's so many that I could keep going on and on and on about them. And if I didn't mention you, I'm sorry. But yeah, so don't go and support those kinds of websites. Go and do that, because there's never been a better time, to borrow a term, to support independent video games stuff. Because without that, what are we left with? We're left with YouTube influencers. And I've seen what's happened with other industries, like coverage of books, what they call BookTube or Book Talk. It's really corporate and gross, and it's just not what you're looking for, probably. And then that's probably going to happen to video games if we don't check it, with real, actual journalism and interesting stories and fun streams that involve people that know what they're talking about and have been in the industry for a while and can report on games like the good old days, like we used to. It's a miracle that this is all happening while Game Informer somehow is going to come back. Just a fascinating move. So there's that too. So at least there's no hope, but definitely limited hope. The last thing I'll do is talk a little bit about a personal connection to all this. It doesn't feel like Giant Bomb just died today, or Polygon died today. It does feel like legacy games journalism kind of died. Nothing's left of that kind of original lineage. When I was a kid, I used to want to do that. I dreamed of being a video game journalist. Of course, back when I was a kid, I was thinking about magazines, not websites. I was thinking of Nintendo Power and Electronic Gaming Monthly. How badly I wanted to have that job. Of course, the magazines disappeared over time. And now the same thing's happening with the video game websites. Yeah, I jumped from magazines to oneup.com, and then oneup.com exploded, and then I went on Giant Bomb, and now Giant Bomb exploded, no pun intended. It definitely feels like the end of an era in a lot of ways. And so it does feel like part of me, I'm going to miss like not having the thing that was weekly for me, that podcast that I listened to every single week for the last 17 years. 17 years! That's almost a human adult. That is a junior in high school. That's an entire lifetime, it feels. And just gone. Because venture capital money. Because ad revenue. Because search optimization. Because guides have more hits than videos do. Whatever reason there is. It's gross. It's disappointing. And it definitely feels like something finally just withered off a vine. Anyways, with all that said, we're not even done with the depressing stories yet. The last story we have is a story that will sound familiar to a lot of people here. Not only is the Switch 2 subject to tariff delays and increased prices for accessories, but Microsoft is following suit. The Xbox Series X and S consoles will be receiving a price, wait for it, increase. Coming soon, they will both increase by $100 each. That brings up the 1 terabyte Xbox Series X to $599.99 US. Yes, that's right. An Xbox is finally that mythical number. It is a $600 console. It's kind of brutal, but not as brutal as this next bit. Microsoft took a page from Nintendo's playbook and has decided that some of their first-party games will indeed move up to the $80 price point. Nintendo opened the door, and everybody is going to come right through. So now we're just kind of waiting, playing the waiting game and waiting until Sony says the same thing about PlayStation 5. It's just a matter of time. You're probably thinking, wait, don't they already have a $700 console? Yes, they do. It's the PlayStation 5 Pro, and you're right. That did happen, and you forgot. Anyways. That's it for video games. Sorry for opening the show on such a downer, but I just wanted to get all of that off my chest. It's been a day of thinking a lot about the industry and what's left of it. And the answer is not much. But hey, you have the Media Boat podcast here to keep you updated. Isn't that wonderful? Anyways, that's it for video games. No thoughts. Like I said, when Mike returns, he'll tell you all about Tape 2 of the Lost Records. I assume he's still ready to talk about it. In the meantime, I haven't really played any new video games. New video games, those cost money. Who has money these days? Let's move on. Next up, we'll talk about music, and we always start the music section with the Billboard Hot 100. And your hottest song in the world, right in the land of, I guess, U.S., not the world, right now is still Luther by Kendrick Lamar and SZA. And that's followed at number 2 with Die With a Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. Number 3 is Ordinary by Alex Warren. Number 4 is Nokia by Drake. And number 5, a bar song, Dipsy by Shabuzi. Your Billboard 200 chart this week, that's the albums chart. Number 1, weirdly enough, is SOS by SZA. This might be spurred on by people getting hyped up for the Kendrick Lamar and SZA tour. I would not be surprised if that's the source of this. Because right behind it, number 2 is GNX by Kendrick Lamar. Number 3, returning to the number 3, is Media Boat, to the top 5, is Media Boat villain Morgan Wallen with One Thing at a Time. Number 4, Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter. And number 5, Some Sexy Songs for You by Party Next Door and Drake. All right, next up, new releases. If you didn't like any of those albums, here are some new releases. First up, we have If You Asked for a Picture by Blonde Shell. The Scholars by Car Seat Headrest. Evangeline versus the Machine by Eric Church. Perhaps Mike will listen to that and talk about that next week. Iris Silver Mist by Jenny Haval. Altogether Stranger by Lael Neal. A6 by Lights. Lucius by Lucius. Pirouette by Model Actress, At Peace by Propagandi, Who Will Look After the Dogs by Pup, and lastly, Flying with Angels by Suzanne Vega. Those are your new releases. But let's do a fun adventure by looking into a crystal ball and looking at the new releases of the future. We have two big album announcements that happened the last couple of days. And we start with today's, which was Ed Sheeran announcing his new upcoming 8th album called Play, which will arrive September 12th via Gingerbread Records and Atlantic. The singer-songwriter commemorated the album announcement with the release of his new single, Old Phone, co-produced with Ilya Salonzeda and Blake Slatkin. He's been leading up to this album with the release of lead single Azizam, which dropped earlier this month. And he recently launched a nostalgic Instagram account called @Teddy'sOldPhone with photos from Ed Sheeran's old phone. Sheeran was inspired by global sounds from India and Persia, according to Sheeran himself, for Play, incorporating influences from the latter for the single Azizam. The song title is Persian for my dear or beloved, and he subsequently released a version of the song with Iranian singer Gugush. So definitely a little bit of a pivot for Ed Sheeran. I heard the single on the radio yesterday, and it definitely doesn't sound quite like his other stuff. I don't know if this is a good thing yet. I have yet to make that determination, but hey, trying something different is always good. We'll see. We'll see, Ed. We'll see. Next up, in other new release options, we've been talking announcements. We've been talking a lot about Lorde recently with her new single last week. Now a proper new album has finally been announced. The title will be Virgin, and the release date is June 27th. Lorde describes Virgin as 100% written in blood. These details, along with the cover art of the LP, were shared on Lorde's website on Wednesday morning. The album artwork is a blue-tinted X-ray of a pelvis with a zipper going down the middle, a belt buckle in the center, and the outline of an IUD. The record was written with Grammy Producer of the Year Dan Nigro, who of course grew to fame with his work with Olivia Rodrigo and Chappell Roan, as well as Blood Orange's Dev Hynes, Fabiana Palladino, Andrew Ajed, and Buddy Ross. On Apple Music, the album appears to have 11 tracks, including the latest single, What Was That? So yeah, new Lorde is always good news. I don't love What Was That, but maybe the rest of it gives it context, lets it breathe a little. I am always fascinated to see what Lorde does. This definitely tonally seems like a complete opposite to Solar Power. So yeah, we're going back to that moody, dramatic Lorde, I think, that we got on Melodrama. So that could potentially be good. So we'll see as more songs come out. That's it for music. So let's skip on over to television, and we always start television with the Sports Corner. Again, Mike's not here, but I will do my best with the stuff that he's written here in the sports section. First up, prepare your mint juleps and your big floppy hats because the 151st Kentucky Derby races this weekend at Churchill Downs. So, moral objections to horse racing beside, it's still happening. The Kentucky Derby is still a thing. And yeah, if you like mint juleps, just have a mint julep and maybe don't watch the race. That's okay too. Next up, the NFL. Of course, draft day happened last week, the day that I recorded, actually. The Titans were on the clock and selected quarterback Cam Ward with their first pick in the first round. Meanwhile, the Jaguars traded up to select Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter for their pick. Projected third pick in the first round, Shedeur Sanders went in the 5th round as the 144th overall pick. And every year we talk about him, this year's Mr. Irrelevant was Kobe Minor, good name, and was selected by the New England Patriots. So there you go. Yeah, there was a lot of drama around the NFL draft this year. I don't know a whole lot about it. I'll save that for Mike next week. But yeah, seemed crazy. Next up, let's move to baseball news. The MLB continues, and the Dodgers and the Mets are the first two teams to reach 20 wins. Meanwhile, the Colorado Rockies haven't even hit 10 yet. So, a lot of haves and have-nots this season in baseball. Next up in the NBA, the playoffs continue. The Heat, Bucks, the Magic, and the Grizzlies and the Lakers have all already been eliminated from contention. Of course, parallel to this is the NHL playoffs, where the Lightning, Canadiens, and Devils have been eliminated. So if your team wasn't on there, keep rooting for them. They have a chance. All right. Let's move on to some television news. That's it for sports. We have some scheduling bits for you. When stuff is going to either be shot or come out. First up, on Disney Plus, Ahsoka Season 2 has begun filming, which is expected to debut sometime next year in 2026. Meanwhile, on Netflix, Guy Ritchie's Season 2 of The Gentleman has begun production with an expected release date of also next year in 2026. Three Body Problem, also on Netflix, I believe, will shoot their Season 2 and 3 back-to-back in the fall, with Season 2 expected to come out this year, nearly 4 years after the first season was aired. Meanwhile, Shogun's second season has set production to start on January of next year, so you'll have to wait a little bit longer for more Shogun. And then lastly, Resident Alien, which is a show that still exists, has cast Stephen Root in Season 4 as the father of Alan Tudyk's character, when the show makes its move from Sci-Fi to its new home at USA Network. So yeah, if you're wondering what happened with Resident Alien, like I just was, that's where it now lives. All right, that's it for television news. Big thoughts this week. I will just briefly say, the studio is getting better every week. I said that last week too, but oh my gosh, if it just keeps going like this, that is probably your show to watch this year. It is just so funny and so ridiculous. Just, watch The Studio on Apple TV Plus if you're not already watching it. And then let's round up the television section with cancellations and renewals. We start with a renewal on BET Plus of I almost said Diarrhea, which is not what's written here. Diarrhea from Detroit. So there you go. And next, Netflix is renewing North of North for a second season and Geek Girl for a second season. And lastly on the Media Boat podcast, let's talk about movies. And we always start the movies section with the weekend box office numbers. Yes, Sinners is your number one movie for a second weekend in a row with $45 million this week. It's at $122 million, already making buco bucks. Number two, the re-release of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, made $25 million in its return to screens. Pretty weird, but hey, nostalgia is always a big factor, isn't it? Number three, The Accountant 2 hangs in there with another $24 million. Not hangs in there. That debuted this week. I thought it was already here. But no, that debuted this week to $24 million. And number four is a Minecraft movie with another $22 million. That's at $379 million. Already one of this year's best performers. And rounding out your top five, the film version of Until Dawn debuted to $8 million. So there you go. That is your box office for this week. Upcoming new release this week, and yes, I mean new release, singular. Get out of the way because a Marvel movie is coming. Thunderbolts, asterisk, is finally releasing into theaters tomorrow. Looks like a bunch of IMAX screens that previously had Sinners are converting to having Thunderbolts this weekend, and people are not happy. But regardless, I think this will be okay. It's being reviewed okay so far. So yeah, maybe a little minor comeback for the Marvel stuff, but that remains to be seen. And lastly, let's hit us up with some movie news. And Mike has prepared a little bit of a recap of 2024's winners and losers. So who set the top records from last year? Well, the numbers are in and the receipts have been calculated. 2024's winners and losers based on total revenue in worldwide box office receipts, home and streaming revenues, against total expenses and production costs, ads, residuals, overhead, and other net losses are here. Apple and Amazon films are not included with this. They are excluded from the survey as they have a clandestine metric as to how they evaluate their movies post cinema success. By traditional P&L standards, some of those releases would be considered flops, and they don't necessarily like the look of that. But here's the most profitable and biggest losers at the box office last year. Your biggest profiters. Number one was, of course, Inside Out 2, which made Disney a whopping $650 million. Followed by Disney's Moana 2, which made $415 million. Deadpool and Wolverine, also a Disney film, $400 million. Not a Disney film, Despicable Me 4 made $300 million, and Wicked made $230 million. So yeah, some big moneymakers there. But of course, your biggest losses, your biggest losers of the year, start with number one, Joker, Foy Ado. I never say that correctly, but you get the idea, which lost $144 million and was an absolute bomb. Followed by number two, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Unfortunately, was a great movie, but did not make up its budget in any sort of way. It lost the studio $119 million. That is probably the last we'll see of Mad Max for a while. Number three, Borderlands, the big disaster, lost $80 million in its release. Megalopolis lost $75 million of Francis Ford Coppola's own money. And number five, Kraven the Hunter, put a nail in the Venom verse by losing $71 million in its release. So, yeah, pretty brutal numbers there. But, Disney kind of had a strong jump back up to prominence this past year. And Warner just couldn't figure it out. Warner with some really big losses on their side. Yeah, so we'll see what the rest of 25 has to offer. All right, folks, that will do it. That's it for the Media Boat podcast, and that's it for me. So you can catch us next week. Like I said, Mike will be doing a solo show then. You can find that show on YouTube if you search YouTube for Media Boat Podcast. You can also find it on podcast services by searching Media Boat Podcast on the catcher of your choice. You can also find us on the web. MediaBoatPodcast.com is our website. We also have Mike plays the occasional video game on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/MediaBoat. He was playing some Blueprints and then recently jumped back into Infinity Nikki this week. Who knows what's next in his video game hopper, so stay tuned to that. And social media platforms, you can find us such as Blue Sky. We're on there at MediaBoat. Search MediaBoat Podcast and you'll find us there. And last but definitely not least, if you want to email us with questions, comments, feedback about the show, anything you want to say, we'll read it on the show. So you can do that by email. God, I'm running out of steam. You can do that by emailing us at mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. All right, that'll do it. I'm signing out. Mike will see you next week on the Media Boat Podcast. Bye-bye.